Prescription for addiction. Despite a dramatic spike in overdoses, New York doctors have sharply increased the number of OxyContin prescriptions they write. And it's a problem you're paying for. The I-Team's Chris Glorioso is here now to reveal a list of physicians who are doing it the most, and tonight he's naming names. Chris?
Tom, consider this statistic. In 2010, New York doctors wrote 82% more oxycodone prescription than they did just 3 years earlier. That is a flood of new pills, and it made us wonder, which doctors specifically are the highest volume prescribers? We asked the question, and this list has the answers. OxyContin and the generic oxycodone. They remain among the most powerful narcotic painkillers on the market. New York doctors are prescribing more of them, and the I-Team has the list of physicians who prescribed the most through Medicaid last year. At the top of the list, Island Park Dr. Christian Nahas. In 2011, he prescribed more than $500,000 worth of Oxy, and your taxes paid for it.
How do you explain Dr. Nahas having prescribed the most OxyContin?
Dr. Nahas wanted nothing to do with our camera or our questions, but soon after the I-Team requested the list with his name at the top, Nahas's license was suspended. The state is now investigating allegations of medical misconduct. So who is New York's number 2 Oxy prescriber?
Is there any explanation for the high volume of OxyContin?
No, I cannot answer that.
His name is Dr. Tomasito Varay. He works out of the Astromed Clinic in the Bronx, where Medicaid records show his oxycodone prescriptions cost taxpayers over $400,000. Varay wrote an average of 60 OxyContin prescriptions a week last year. On the phone, he said the DEA recently told him to reduce his patient load by 50%, and Varay says he did.
I do not prescribe prescriptions without looking at the MRI, without convincing myself that the patient really needs it, and without really analyzing if the patient is withdrawal or is getting addicted.
The doctor who is number 3 on the list of Oxy prescribers has already made headlines. Dr. Eric Jacobson wrote an average of 35 Oxy prescriptions a week, costing Medicaid more than $300,000. But you may know his name for a different reason.
David, why'd you do it?
Prosecutors say he is one of the docs who supplied pain pills to Medford pharmacy killer David Laffer. Jacobson has pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to distribute oxycodone.
We've gone to law enforcement about doctors in our community whose names we hear time and time again, and we hear the horror stories.
Jeffrey Reynolds is the executive director of the Long Island Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, a nonprofit that helps drug addicts get clean. He says some of the doctors on this list are names his addicts know all too well. Have you gone to law enforcement about doctors you see on that list?
Yes.
After the I-Team requested this list, federal and local law enforcement have cracked down on some of the doctors. Just last week, the number 4 Oxy prescriber, Rohan Wijitalaka, was arrested for writing bad prescriptions. His lawyer did not return our calls. Despite the large number of pills, not everyone thinks the doctors on this list are over-prescribing. Richard Langone represents the state's number 6 Oxy prescriber, William Conway.
People like Dr. Conway are becoming object lessons, sacrificial lambs.
Langone says his client is a compassionate physician who unwittingly supplied drug-seeking patients. Conway recently pleaded not guilty to charges he illegally supplied pain pills to addicts, including 29-year-old Chris Bosmus, who died of an overdose last year. Is Dr. Conway a good doctor?
Excellent.
Is Dr. Conway a naive doctor?
He's good and naive.
With doctors like that out there, they're only fueling the epidemic.
Since Chris Bosmus's overdose, his surviving family has been calling for high-volume prescribers like the doctors on this list to be frozen out of tax-funded Medicaid. It turns out Bosmus paid for a lot of his pain pills with Medicaid. His sister says someone should have noticed tax dollars were paying for a fatal doctor shopping spree.
The fact that he was able to fill multiple prescriptions from various doctors in 1 month, and that didn't raise a flag anywhere, and Medicaid was paying for it, it's scary.
We should stress again, the mere presence of a doctor's name on this list does not mean she or he has prescribed any pills illegally, but the numbers show these pain pills come at a massive taxpayer cost. Medicaid paid out about $2.7 million last year just for the oxy pills that were prescribed by these 10 doctors. And you can go to NBCNewYork.com. We've actually posted the Freedom of Information request that we filed to get this information, and you can check to see if your doctor is on one of these lists, not only for OxyContin, but just about every other potentially addictive drug out there. You can see the list of top prescribers. We even have an interactive tool where you can take a look at any drug, Ambien or Adderall or OxyContin, and get a bar graph to see how many prescriptions are being written and what the taxpayer cost is. It's a really interesting tool, and a lot of people are going to want to see what their doctor is up to.
We're back now with a big I-Team investigation. Tonight, a doctor is accused of turning a local clinic into a pill mill.
According to medical records, he writes more oxycodone prescriptions than any other doctor in New York State. He's being investigated by the DEA, and one former patient says she's hooked on pain pills because of him. The News 4 I-Team's Chris Glorioso has part 2 now of our special series, Prescription for Addiction.
It just angers me, because I went to him for treatment.
She is a 37-year-old pain patient who tearfully admits she is dependent on oxycodone.
And now I'm addicted to something that people prescribe for you.
For her addiction, she blames herself, but she also blames a doctor that the I-Team first identified as prescribing unusually high numbers of pain pills.
Is there any explanation for the high volume of OxyContin?
I cannot answer that.
Medicaid records show Dr. Tomasito Varay wrote an average of 60 oxycodone scripts per week, costing taxpayers more than $400,000 last year. On a recent Tuesday, the Bronx clinic was crowded with patients. Many cars out front had out-of-state plates. This former patient says the out-of-staters come here because this is a pill mill. Have you ever seen anybody get a prescription from Dr. Varay and then walk out, fill it, and sell it?
To be honest, yes.
Are you convinced this is a pill mill?
I totally am.
Bronx City Council member Annabelle Palma says in just the last year, more than 200 people have called her office complaining of drug dealers and addicts loitering outside Dr. Varay's clinic. A police spokeswoman says officers have been called here about 40 times in the last 18 months for things like illegal narcotic sales, medical assists, and larceny.
I started coming out more frequently and noticing all the activity that was going on, and then that's when I was convinced that it was a pill mill.
When we visited, some of the people going in and out of the office threatened they would have beaten us up had it been dark outside.
You're lucky. You're lucky it's daytime.
The threat of violence is why this former patient asked us to protect her identity. She's afraid exposing Dr. Varay might make her a target for revenge by his loyal patients. When we talked to Dr. Varay on the phone, he defended his patients and his prescribing habits.
I examine them. You know, each patient that comes in, okay, there are certain ways of examining them, okay? Once I see the patient is addicted, I refer them for detoxification, like rehab.
Did he ever physically examine you?
Nope.
Did he ever ask you your drug history?
Nope. This is the type of practice that you can go to, no questions asked.
If you prescribe it for a correct medical legitimate purpose, then it's fine. But in that case, it's not a legitimate purpose.
Dr. Andrew Kaufman is a pain management expert who consults for the DEA.
You've just then handed someone a prescription and someone's paid you for that. That's dealing. That's not being a doctor.
On the phone, Dr. Varay told us he does demand drug tests and examines patients for signs of withdrawal and addiction. Varay also said he's a good pain doctor because he takes OxyContin himself to cope with severe bleeding ulcers.
Doctor, how much OxyContin do you take yourself?
It depends on the day.
As a physician, he should be mindful of the oath that he took to care for people, and his practices don't coincide with that oath.
Dr. Varay himself told us the DEA audited him and recently demanded he reduce his patient load by 50%. He says he did that. Despite outcry from Councilmember Palma and neighbors of the clinic, Dr. Verre's office was open today dispensing pills. The hope is that some of the legislation pushed by Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, the I-Stop legislation, will put a stop to much of this doctor shopping that allows these high-volume prescribers to continue doling out the pills.